with the specified order conditions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 19, which is docket 9709-FG-2020. This is the 2020 Energy Innovation Grant Program, and Commissioner Hebner is leading the discussion on this today. So I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Hebner.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you said, we're taking up the awards for our 2020-2021 round of the Energy Innovation Grant Program. The background of this program starts back in 2009. The U.S. Department of Energy issued American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or ARRA, funds through the state energy program to every state and territory. Wisconsin received approximately $55 million at that time. And originally, we put this money into a clean energy manufacturing revolving loan fund. And since that time, principal and interest from many of those loans has been repaid, and additional repayments continues to accrue. In 2017, the commission decided to repurpose those dollars, those available funds, into this grant program. And in 2018, we issued a $5 million round of funding. There remains about, I don't know the exact number, but about $25 million in this fund. And we talked about this on September 10th of last year in our open meeting to issue our second round of funding. And we put out application instructions in October. We're requesting proposals in 4 categories for funding up to $7 million for this round. The 4 categories are renewable energy and energy storage. The second one is energy efficiency and demand response. The third is electric and renewable natural gas, vehicles and infrastructure. And the fourth was comprehensive energy planning. And eligible applicants span manufacturers and the municipal government, university, schools, hospitals, and nonprofit markets. Proposals were due on January 22nd of this year. We had an excellent response. From my view, we had 108 applications requesting $24.46 million in grant funds. Given that we have far more funding requests than we set out to fund, just preliminary statement, it will be inevitable today that many very good projects will not be able to be funded in this round. However, I want to thank, and I'm sure we all want to thank each and every applicant, all 108, for applying to the program. And taking the time to do that. Upon receipt of applications, we had a very robust evaluation process. We had 14 experts from within and outside the commission. I want to thank all of those evaluators for putting together for their time and expertise in developing these recommendations for us. We do have some preliminary matters related to eligibility. And before we do that, I wanted to see if either of my colleagues had any other preliminary thoughts or statements they wanted to make. Chair Bach?
I do not. Thank you, Commissioner Hebner. I think you did a good job laying the foundation.
Commissioner Nowak?
I don't have anything.
Nope. Okay. Well, then we will start with the memo. On page 12 is our first preliminary item for discussion and decision. And it relates to eligibility. We had some application filing situations. Various applicants either applied on time but had a second submission come in late, a budget or something like that. In some cases, a few were late entirely. I'm fine to talk about some of these, but where I ended up landing is, when we have these grant programs, some of these applicants, this may be the first time using IRF, or maybe they use it once a year. And so I wasn't as harsh on this and really landed at alternative 4, taking note of the concerns, but not necessarily ruling on the eligibility based on those. Chair Bach?
Okay, you guys know I'm normally a stickler for deadlines, but I think the last year has softened me. So after talking to staff for this one, I was actually at alternative 1, in that I was going to find them all eligible for consideration.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Nowak?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out which ones were truly late. And, if it was a supplemental filing because they updated a budget, that didn't seem to me like, oh, that was late. If it was like if they filed one piece of paper just to get it in time and then they really filed the substance afterwards, that's a problem. I don't know how many came like that. There were a couple that I still took into consideration that were recommended for funding because it was like they updated a quote or something like that.
Right.
But so I wouldn't consider that late. The Wood County one, though, I think did come in. One of them came in substantially late. I mean, there are some I would absolutely exclude, and I did take that into consideration on eligibility. I would exclude some, but I can join you, Commissioner Hebner, at Alternative 4. Just take note of them. I think we do have to, because we always receive so many more applications than money available, we do have to really start, I think, being a little more harsh on some of these because then it's going to be, well, if it's an hour late, then what's 2 hours and they haven't used IRF before? Well, okay, I get it, but you have time to practice. Staff is there to help. You don't need an engineering degree to use it. So we need to get people used to filing this kind of stuff. So I can stay at Alternative 4. I would lean to excluding some, but if you guys aren't, I'll stay at Alternative 4.
Okay. I can join you guys at Alternative 4, and then I'll just make a plug that hopefully the new grants management system that we're putting in place will alleviate some of these issues. Because you're right, Commissioner Nowak, as interest continues to increase for our grant programs, I think we're going to see more of this rather than less. But hopefully that new grant management system helps. So I'll join you guys at Alt 4.
Okay. And thanks, Chair. I was going to put in the same plug. I too am hopeful that when that system comes up, when the deadline comes and then someone goes to apply, it just simply won't be available. Whereas obviously with IRF, it's always on because there's always something that needs to be filed somewhere. So, okay.
When is this system supposed to be in place?
Eric?
Or Tara maybe knows.
Yep. We are slated to launch by the end of this fiscal year, June 30.
No.
Okay. The next preliminary item was on page 13, and this was related to Aspirus Wausau Hospital. They applied under the electric vehicle category, and they had applied for some chargers, which are clearly eligible, but also for a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle or multiple plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. The evaluation team recommended alternative 2 here, which is basically to keep them in, but go back to them and have the plug-in hybrid activity replaced with an eligible activity, which would either be a battery electric vehicle or a RNG related vehicle. So that's where I was at alternative 2, keeping them eligible and in, but making them change the vehicle type. Chair Vach?
I was at Alt 2 as well.
Okay, right. Commissioner Nowak?
Yeah, I think if they want to do a hybrid, we shouldn't make them go back and buy an electric. I think it was a little vague in our instructions. I think there's the lack of applications on EVs overall is indicative, I think, of the perhaps demand. So why would we turn around and make them go buy an EV when they've already scoped out a hybrid? It doesn't make sense to me. I would say hybrids or EVs should be eligible here. If we're gonna promote this, we got to start somewhere.
So you would be at
none of the above, right?
None of the above, eligible as applied.
I would, I guess none of the alternatives is eligible, and we would also amend it applications to include hybrids, electric vehicles. We didn't specifically exclude them, right?
My understanding was that we were, and it may have not been as clear as it could have been, but the intention was related to electric, fully electric. And I know the last round there was at least one grant that was funded that was based only on electric. So that was my intention. And so that's kind of where I landed at alternative 2, is seeing if they can change the vehicles they're choosing.
Well, it's probably going to change the cost, though.
Right. I think it'll change the project overall, which is one of the questions I asked was, had we gone back to them to ask what it would do to their proposal? And my understanding is that we don't have those conversations ahead of the three of us deciding which grants to award, and that they would go back if we decided to award them some funds, that they would then go back and talk to the applicant.
I mean, we had none at all on EVs, pure, like 100% EV, right?
I think that's true. Yep. The other one in that category was charging station, I think.
Charging stations, yeah.
Right.
That's why I was just like, we're offering free money for EVs and people still are not applying for it. I think we need to adapt here, because that's clearly, and I believed when we approved this, it didn't have to be 100% EV. It could have been a hybrid vehicle. I just think that we're saying now you have to go buy an EV, and no one applied for an EV. No one.
So you would award I don't know. I guess we haven't gotten there, but you would deem them eligible and leaving the application as is.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Okay. Commissioner Hebner, do you have thoughts?
Well, I think, the way we structured this was there's essentially a rebate or a funding allotment per vehicle. So the cost for Aspirus may be a little different on the vehicle that they would choose, but the rebate would remain the same. So I'm still at alternative 2. I think we go back to them and see if they're willing to change. And if they, for some reason, are not, then I don't know if there's an opportunity for staff to raise that up and see what we would do with that changed budget. But I think the intention there was to spur the electric vehicles. And I think, from my at least personal knowledge, I think there is, affordable. I know the city of Madison last time around, got a lot of all EV vehicles. So I think there are affordable models that Aspirus could choose from.
Can we put a pin in this one? I want to come back to this because
that sounds good.
Yeah, Commissioner Noack, I think you raised a good point, and that is, I want to go back and look at what we said in terms of eligibility.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Next up is on page 14, and this relates to third-party letters of support that were submitted after the deadline. I didn't have really strong feelings on this one, but kind of landed at alternative 1. Having them in the record again, in the future, I think this will be avoided, but at this time, I was fine with them in. So, Chair Vach, did you have thoughts?
I was also at Alt 1. I would allow them to be included in the record.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yeah, I was actually at Alt 3. There was no reason why they, were late. I didn't see that there was for cause or what happened. I asked if there was some type of issue with IRF, why there were quite a few. It was a little odd.
Yep.
I didn't know if there was a communication issue about when they had to be due. So I was at, excluding them. I think most of the ones that have filed a letter of support have used IRF before.
Yep, I noticed that too.
Wasn't like, hey, what's IRF? So
yep.
I was at alternative 3.
Okay. Like I said, I didn't have real strong feelings, so I lean towards 1. So I don't, Chair Bach, if you are sticking with 1, then I'll stay with 1 as well. So.
Well, I think Commissioner Nowak is bringing me back to my stickler.
You're surprising me today.
To my stickler self. So here I was. It's April 1st. It's April Fool's. So I will. You're right, Commissioner Nowak. I guess they don't. To be perfectly honest, they didn't sway me one way or the other. It's not like a project was on the edge and a letter put me one way or another. And so I maybe just, it probably is more prudent to exclude them, just because, as you indicated, most of them are pretty familiar with our system, and we have to pencils down, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm fine with that. Because a lot of the other applications did have, letters of support tucked into their PDF. So I'm fine joining you at alternative 3 on this.
Okay.
So great. Okay. I think that takes us to our preliminary matters. The memo has some additional discussion, but it ultimately takes us to page 21. And as you alluded to, Commissioner Nowak, activity 3 are electric vehicles and RNG infrastructure. This was an activity we had allotted up to $1 million, again, based on the previous round. We had more than one, I think at least 2 applications, one on RNG, one on EVs that were substantial. And the feeling was that, up to $1 million that this activity would be popular, but it turned out that it only got 2 applications for a request totaling $32,200. So what the staff is proposing to do here is to reallocate that funding across activities 1, 2, and 4 accordingly. And I would generally say, I don't know that we have to pick a decision here, but I did use this as a guide in kind of developing my strategy. And I do have a handout that would kind of guide us through at least my perspective on the applications from here on out. So Stephanie, can you send that out now? I don't know, Chair Vach, if you had a specific position on the item on page 21, or if, to me, it just kind of rolled into the overall funding decision that we'll ultimately make. So it definitely guided me, but did you have a specific spot on this decision item?
I was in favor of prorating the funds.
Yep.
Along with the percentages that were originally established by us. If you have a handout, does the handout go through, are you changing some of the recommended awards?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and I'll go through that. And it does guide to these numbers. So I'm generally at alternative 2, but maybe not down to the penny. And so that's where I kind of hedged my bets on which alternative to pick. Commissioner Nowak, did you have thoughts on this one?
Yeah, hang on. Let me. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. Okay. I don't think we need to as well make a decision here per se. I followed it too as a guide. I made some suggested modifications to what the panel recommended, and had a small deviation too from the pro rata use of the excess dollars from the EV activity. And it's a small deviation, but it's not so.
Yeah.
I kept, I don't know if we want to go through your handout.
Yeah, I think
Chair, if you want to go through, you want both of ours to look at. I don't know how you guys want to do this.
Yep.
I can add some functionality too. Why don't we start and distribute Commissioner Hebner's handout first? And I would ask if the commissioners would like, we will be able to display. I don't know if we can display 2 handouts at a time, but we can display the handout online so you can see it on the screen as well. So you're not having to look multiple places. For those listening at home, the handout will be posted under events calendar, lower right-hand side. Commissioner Nowak, would you also like your handout distributed at this time? Or you want to see what Commissioner Hebner's looks like, and then we can move to your handout?
Yeah, let me see what his is. I just printed it off too, so I'll take a look at that.
I wonder, does it make sense for all of us to look at to take a little bit of time, to take a break, to look at the 2 handouts, and then we can come back and talk through them?
Yeah, actually, I think so. Why don't you send mine around, Cindy?
Okay.
And just Chair, I think it would make sense for me to walk through what my changes are, and then that may help as you look at them, and you can kind of weigh what my changes were and why I made them. And then I think that would be helpful
before we break
as you go into the break. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss mine too.
Okay.
Super.
All right.
Well, Cindy, I'll let you cue us as to when, if you want to put that up on the screen, or if somebody's going to do that, or else if you've both received it, I can walk through it.
Yep, I think they're working on it. I've got multiple things. I got chats going. I got emails going. This chat feature is a no bueno for me.
Good thing you're a good multitasker.
We could play it if you'd prefer. We could bring it up.
Yeah, can you just bring up the handouts? Start with Commissioner Hebner's, and I can probably.
There we go.
Oh, look at that.
Nope, that's not the spreadsheet. The actual handout for Commissioner Hebner.
I've got
it's a PDF.
Kishan, why don't you let me do it? I'll take care of it. I've got it pulled up.
Okay, and then Stephanie, if you can post Commissioner Noack's as well, and we'll have that one ready to go up next.
Yes, both should be available online.
I'm seeing the one. I'm not seeing the second one yet. I think okay, both handouts are available online. So Commissioner Hebner, yours is publicly available. So if you want to walk them through.
Okay. So I had proposed changes for all activities 1, 2, and 4. So we'll just go through them. In all cases, I started at the top of the evaluation committee's recommendations, and it's very similar down to a point. And for the first activity, renewable energy and energy storage, I've got recommended all the same, all the way down through the one that would be Rooted Wisconsin Inc. And below that, were the two that were recommended were the city of Jefferson for a battery storage and the city of Monona for a battery storage. As I reviewed those, a couple things really stood out. First, for both of those, the cost share that they're contributing is a lot lower than what the cost share was for the projects above that line, and also what the cost share is for projects that are below that line. And so as I looked, I projects that I thought were really good. The first one is Pierce Manufacturing Inc. And so that was a solar and battery storage for a manufacturer. They make fire trucks in the Fox Valley. It scored really well on almost every category of the evaluators, but except for a couple that are not really in the wheelhouse of a manufacturer per se. So I just thought that really was a good project. And I would include that. And then if you want to scroll down, Joe, with the funding that would be left then at that. Oh, I should say one other thing about Octopi Brewing. So that was a project that had applied for $500,000 in the last round, and we had partially funded it for $250,000. They've reapplied for the full $500,000 now that it was clear that we were allowing solar and battery at certain levels. However, the $250,000 from 2018 is still available to them, and so I would essentially add the $250,000 this year, but then that would free up $250,000 of funds. So we wouldn't be using $500,000 of this year's funds to fund that project. So then when you run that math, that leaves about $183,332. And I had two different proposals, I guess, 1A and 1B, and would like your guys' input on this unless you have other structural changes. The first is basically a basket of solar PV projects. It's 5 different organizations or municipalities. As you recall, we limited solar PV to 22% of the grant is what they could apply for. So when you add up all those, you'd be looking at 161,000 of grant funds, but their cost share total is 642,000. So they're bringing, again, 78% of the value of the project to the table. And when I kind of contrasted that to Monona, which is like a $200,000 project with, I think about 9,000 of cost share. And then Jefferson, similarly, about a $200,000 project with, I think, 70,000 of cost share. But I just thought those were really compelling. The other one that I thought was interesting was the city of Eau Claire. And this is a geothermal energy project. So this would be geothermal heating and cooling for a public library. Under this scenario, we wouldn't be able to fully fund this. This was a $210,000 request, so we couldn't fully fund it, but we could fund the vast majority of it. So I guess give some thought to those two. I don't know if you have thoughts when we come back from the break about the pros and cons. The option A is all solar projects, but they're smaller projects. It would get more grants out throughout the state. And I thought that was a pro. Again, they're bringing more cost share. One B was different because it was geothermal. And so that's why I was interested in that. So that's the end of my renewables and energy storage one. If you want to scroll down to the activity 2, energy efficiency. So similarly, starting at the top, I was in line with the review committee down through the foremost farms. And then below that, they had the city of Milwaukee and Ulster Monksjo. The city of Milwaukee, I thought was a really good project, but I was surprised to see, again, they're asking for about $700,000 and their cost share was really low. And so again, kind of looking below that line to see some of the projects that were, I thought had really compelling energy savings and a really compelling cost share. 2 stood out to me, and that was the city of Fond du Lac and Stainless Foundry and Engineering. Again, in both of those cases, they're bringing pretty significant cost share. And those were just not too far below that previous cut line, but they're smaller projects that I thought we could fund. And then it was kind of Ulster Monksjo or city of Milwaukee. And I landed on Ulster Monksjo just because of the savings potential with that unique project. And that was kind of my last one in that category. And then for activity 4, again, starting at the top, I was good down through the planning grants to Vernon County. And these were all really, really close. So this is a much tougher one. But when I looked at that charter manufacturing company planning grant, I was really struck by the energy savings and demand savings potential. It's a combined heat and power assessment. Also getting a manufacturer, I thought, into the planning cycle and figuring out, how do we take that planning from manufacturers and spread that idea to other manufacturers was a little bit of a unique difference between their proposal and the other ones that we had. So then that was the one that I thought was the kind of the next best fit after Vernon County. So that was my rationale for making changes, again, in line from the top down to a certain point, and then there became a gray area where I thought maybe some different characteristics for me weighted a little bit higher, specifically on cost share and energy savings, and then on the manufacturing side. So any questions for me before we look at Commissioner Nowak's?
Hang on. I'm trying to get a full screen here.
We all need about 3 monitors, I think. Sometimes.
It will be nice when we meet in person. I'm nuts. Chair Bach, do you have any questions before I kind of work through some of what I'm looking at here?
I do not have any questions on Commissioner Hebner's handouts.
All right, I don't know how to fix my screen here, so I can't see any of you or anything on the screen, so that's not helpful. But first of all, Commissioner Hebner, you and I are tracking really close on a couple of these things. You'll see from my handout, I added in the Charter and the Ulster-Munkstrow applications because I thought they were both phenomenal. And I both thought that they should be fully funded. For the reasons you cited, I think other manufacturers can learn from it, but they're also, they represent two of the core industries in this state. And Charter, of course, being one of the largest energy users of all, and Ulster-Munkstrow being one of the larger types of manufacturers in the paper and pulp industry. So I think it is important that we recognize that, and what they're getting at too is potentially what they're going to look at is saving some of that peak demand too, which is very important. So, and again, they were very well thought out. There was a good match on both of those projects as well. So I really felt that those really, that is what this program is for, those types of exact projects. And we should not put something ahead of those for, I think those are just stellar projects. So we need to fund those. So I made those a priority. I did the same thing with you. If you go back to activity 1, Octopi Brewing basically said, we gave them, they were allotted $250,000 last time, haven't used it yet because they said we really need the full grant request. So that 250 is still sitting there, have them use that and then award 250 here. That frees up 250 in this round.
Commissioner Noack, sorry to interrupt. We did just, I know if you can't see, we did just put up your handout as well. So if that helps guide the discussion.
Sure. So I removed a smaller one. And it just because there was part of the project that is obviously merit worthy. It's the Great Lakes Community Conservation Corps. They train some low income, disadvantaged and veterans and projects, but their outcomes, and I thought the application itself was not well prepared. It didn't have a lot of details. I thought the budget itself was very vague and lacking. The purpose, though, they stated they wanted to create a community center for people to come charge their cell phones and laptops. And I just question, is that a real need that we need to have that done? Charging your cell phone is one of the cheapest things you can do. And yeah, it's there for an emergency, but that didn't seem to be the primary purpose of why they wanted to do it. And they also said it could create up to 40 jobs, which I didn't find substantiated at all in their application. So I think, they should come back next time with a little more information or justification and even location of where some of these projects are. So I took that one out. It was just a weaker application. So that left me with the balance. I was going to then fully fund. I thought the city of Jefferson was good. I know you took that out, Commissioner Hebner. That was a really good application. Yeah, it was a lower match than some of the others, but it's to help provide. The thing that stood out on that one was it was providing resilience to their emergency services departments. And I thought that was important. That kind of boosted it for me. So I felt that was also a good application. Maybe their biggest downside was the low match, but that wasn't enough for me to pull it out. And I used most of the balance to fully fund the City of Middleton's project, which also would help provide the resilience to their, I think it was their fire station, maybe police as well. So that left me still with a balance of $152,000, and that's where we could partially fund the city of Wapaka, I thought, with that one. Although I did like the Pierce Manufacturing one. I was looking at how to get that in there. So I like too that you put that in yours. That was also, I thought, on the same type level of application that we saw from Charter and Ulster-Munkstrow. So I liked that one too. The energy efficiency one, you see, I did fully, in activity 2, I did fully fund Alstrom at their requested allotment of $904. Yeah, the city of Milwaukee one, I had a little bit. It was huge. It was a huge request with a very small match. That was also something I noticed, that I did take their match against them. I think it rose from my conversation with some of the reviewers. It rose to a higher level because they had previously received a grant to help with their planning. And then this is the result of some of the energy planning. And I didn't feel like that should be a reason to provide them a grant this round, because to me, that's just not a criteria that should be moved there. So I was going to partially fund the city of Milwaukee. I'll take a look to what you did with yours. I think I'll take a look at how you redistributed those. Activity 3 didn't have any changes as well. And then on the fourth one, I flipped the funding for the Madison Metropolitan School District and Charter. The Madison School District one, I felt it had a lower match compared to some of the other planning efforts we had done or that were in this project group. And I felt, again, that Charter was just stronger for so many other reasons. So I flipped the funding of those two. Any questions on that?
I do not.
Commissioner Hebner?
Okay, I don't think so.
Yeah, we're not that far. It was...
I mean, it seems like we're pretty fairly aligned. I will tell you, I was exactly at the same spot in terms of Octopi. I think it makes sense to just give them to allocate the 250,000 and have that match the prior 250,000. I also was going to be in a position to fully fund Alstrom-Munsko, I think for the same reasons that you pointed out, Commissioner Nowak, as well as to Charter Manufacturing. I think these are exactly the types of companies that these grants should be going to for scalability purposes, for education purposes, and for managing load. And so I was, from a big picture standpoint, I was going to fully fund Charter, fully fund Alstrom-Munsko, and remove $250,000 from Octopi. So now I think we just need a little time to figure out where that leaves us.
Yep. And let me just say one thing. And for all the applicants listening in, I mean, obviously these are all great projects, and it's unfortunate that we don't have enough money to fund all of them. On the city of Jefferson, one thing that stood out to me, I totally agree with the need and the value and the resiliency, but one thing really stood out to me was the seemingly, to me, high cost when just comparing that to Middleton. It's almost the same grant request, about $200,000 to $210,000, and Jefferson's proposing a 30 kilowatt hour battery, and Monona's proposing a 150 kilowatt hour battery. So that attachment 4. Obviously, there's a lot of attachments and paperwork, but that has those two projects on the front page right next to each other, so you can see those numbers. And that's why I think Jefferson is a great idea. I'm just wondering if they can get some more bids. Almost that it was just seemed strange that project was such a small battery for that cost compared to City of Middleton and some of the other ones that we are funding that got higher scores. So that's where I thought that one was a little more of a gray area for me, and why it ultimately I took it out. So let's take a break.
Mon, can you open breakout rooms, please? And then staff, I would, if it's all right with you, Madam Chair, given Commissioner Hebner's leave. After that discussion, we can disperse and kind of get both into split up and get folks into both you and Commissioner Nowak's rooms.
Yep, I think that's great.
To be clear, you want me to set the broadcast to recess, right? And
Yes,
disable that?
please.
Okay.
We good, Mom?
Yep, the broadcast is on.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hebner, did you have any questions on Commissioner Nowak's handout?
Nope, I didn't. I, had a chance to review, and I would continue to fund or keep in the Great Lakes Community Conservation Corps. I thought that was a good project. Again, cost share there, they're bringing 47,000 into the project. So I would keep that in. It was highly rated. So I would leave that one in. Besides that, I think it's more to you two, I guess, to react to my proposed changes.
Okay, so I would also leave the Great Lakes Community Conservation Corps in, but I would take Commissioner Nowak's suggestion to fully fund the city of Middleton. So when I do that, that takes the Pierce Manufacturing amount down to about 340,000, which my understanding is because it's scalable, that deduction, won't be material and hopefully wouldn't impact the project. Then when I go to activity 2, I would also agree with what you have in there, Commissioner Hebner. But I would actually agree with Commissioner Nowak and fully fund Ahlstrom-Munsko by taking the remainder from activity 4. So, and the staff is going to work on putting all of this together to make sure that it works. Mm-hmm. And then I think all three of us agree that we would fund charter at the $100,000 level.
And then on planning, I should have mentioned this too. I would keep in the Madison School District one. I thought that one scored higher and was more compelling based on they've just passed a really big referendum, and I think this energy planning could really be it's the right time for that because they're just about to do significant renovation. So I thought that one to me weighed higher than the other ones, again below Vernon County. There was a couple that were mentioned in the memo, but I would keep that one in, fund charter, and then that would be my basket. It's the same basket as what I had proposed in my memo. Mm-hmm. So I guess, Chair Bach, that would be your call if you liked Madison Metro School District or one of the other ones that had been near there.
No, I think I'm keeping your
activity
4 intact.
Okay.
Just to clarify on that one, you removed a partial funding of City of Sun Prairie and the UWM
right
METC project, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
And then I think by fully funding the city of Middleton, somehow, some way, I was also able to fund Neenah Waterworks by using some of that remainder.
Yep.
So those would really be my only changes. And then I just I want to circle back to the, unless you guys have additional questions, but I think we're going to need, staff is going to need a few minutes to make sure that
the numbers work.
Yeah, that we didn't over allocate.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go through, make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So for activity one, what comes out? Okay, so the 13 will stay in since there's 2 votes for that for Great Lakes. Jefferson would be fully funded and partial funding of the city of Middleton.
I would fully fund.
Fully funded. Yeah, that's what I had. Okay.
City of
Got
Middleton.
it. Okay. So basically it's mine, but leaving in Great Lakes.
Well, would Jefferson come out in yours, Chair Bach?
That's where I was wondering.
Can't remember.
Yeah, you didn't have Jefferson in.
Okay. So Jefferson would be out.
And replaced essentially with Pierce.
Correct.
Okay.
So that would then.
That's $170,000 difference.
Yeah, I think there's sufficient funds there because this is where staff can help us, obviously, but when you go down through rooted and then add in City of Middleton, the balance is going to be, I think, what Chair Vach relayed, which is in that 340,000 range.
Right.
And then you would essentially mostly fund Pierce.
Correct.
With that balance, as opposed to my options 1A or 1B.
Correct.
Middleton would essentially replace my options 1A or 1B is the way that would work
correct.
out. Yep. Okay.
So the chair then is also from 1A funding Nina.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's a $5,000 grant. So I would agree with that I think there's a way to get that one in. Yep. Or I hope there is. I like that one for only $5,000.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So I was going to actually see if you guys would be open to, if you have a remaining balance under yours, Commissioner Hebner under 183, take that and partially fund and mostly fund the city of Jefferson. Because that keeps in Pierce and Jefferson, but essentially, Chair Bach, your proposal flips Jefferson and Middleton.
Right.
Yeah. My preference is just going to be Jefferson. I just thought it was a stronger proposal. Okay, let me think on that for a minute. For activity 2, remind me where you were at, Chair Bach.
So for activity 2, I would essentially take Commissioner Hebner's handout the way that it is.
Yep.
And the only difference is I would fully fund Alstrom.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do that by using some of the remaining funds in activity 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. That makes sense to me. We're all close. Activity 3, where did you land on the EV situation?
So for the EV situation, I'm going to stay at Alt 2 because I think that the instructions were pretty clear that it was to be battery, fuel cell, or CNG.
Yeah, and staff relayed to me that they did get a question come in the time period where we were allowing questions on this, and it was a question that was asked of our team: could a hybrid electric or a hybrid vehicle be funded? And the response in that phase was no, that it wasn't eligible. So that was how it was responded to. And staff can,
but I'm not sure that they have that's our call.
Well, I think staff was interpreting what the scoping memo said, which was a table that included that information. and that under that table, it was, I thought, pretty specific that of the types of vehicles that were being authorized from that table, from the memo, and then in the commission's order.
I just think it's wrong to make someone go buy a product they don't want. I mean, we got none on the EVs, and you're not going to get that much more savings out of it. I think that it was broad enough to include hybrids. In other funding pots, I know the VW money that was used where cities could apply for electric buses, a lot of them still didn't. They went with the diesel because it's cheaper and it still works well, especially in the winter. So I'm not sure we should really be limiting that. I don't agree with that. I think we should modify it. We should make clear in the next round. I would make clear. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it says activity 3, electric and renewable natural gas vehicles and infrastructure. This includes projects to procure battery, fuel cell, or compressed natural gas.
Well, isn't there a battery in the?
Well, but I think it's ultimately, it's going to be up to them, right? They could choose to not do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to stay where I was at on that. So
I'll dissent.
Okay.
We should do that.
And just to clarify, then you would authorize full funding up to the amount proposed, but with the substitute technology for that other piece.
Yes, correct. That's where I am. Yes.
Me too. Yeah.
So are we going to stay going forward? It has to be 100% EV. We won't do hybrids.
We would take that up.
Wasn't that there's the tax credits apply to all EV? I don't know why we're being so limiting going forward.
Yeah, I think in future rounds we'll have a chance to do a scoping memo again. That would be my presumption. So we would be able to take that up,
right,
and consider that for future rounds,
right,
at that time.
All right. On activity 4, I'm fine with fully funding charter and how you flipped it. I still think, whether it's the Madison Metropolitan one, it wouldn't be my preference to fund that one. I know they just raised taxes here, but we're also, hopefully by the time we do the next round, we'll see where all the federal money coming in from the COVID relief is going. And, we're going to have a lot of areas with a lot of other money coming, and maybe we can help more nonprofits or manufacturers in the next round. For the first, so I guess the only thing I was thinking on is activity 1. Where, Commissioner Hebner, where are you at on Chairbox counter proposal to yours?
This is the situation. There's great projects that we're just not going to be able to fund no matter what way you slice it. I'm fine with funding the Middleton one. I think comparing Middleton versus Jefferson, again, very similar grant request, and Middleton's proposing 150 kilowatt hour battery, whereas Jefferson's proposing 30 kilowatt hours. So it's 5 times as much or 5 times as large for that price. That seemed to make more sense to me when you compare those two against each other. And then I'm glad to see, I think Pierce Manufacturing come up into the range and be mostly funded then. I think that was a good project. What that leaves on the cutting room floor for me is, some solar only projects, which I think were good and worthy, but without the battery, not quite as high as scores on the innovation front. And then the geothermal. And I think there's no great answer. And that's just what we're at. So I would be fine and support that construction of the portfolio.
Yeah, I like the geothermal project too, just because it was different and it would broaden the base of the projects that we're funding with this.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. And if they don't make it here, I hope they come back next time. It was solid as well.
Yep.
Yeah, my preference is to put Jefferson ahead of Middleton for the reasons I stated earlier. But if there's 2 votes for that, I can take that counter proposal. And I guess we're in agreement on everything except activity 3 and how that would be.
And again, so we're clear, we're taking Commissioner's handout under activity 1 with the reduction of the award amount from Pierce from 370 to approximately 340. And we are adding in the city of Middleton. Then going down to option 1A, we are only taking project 69, Nina, and we are not taking anything from option 1B.
I think that's right, Cindy. And I think, when staff runs the numbers then, and just to verify that we're as close, to the full funding as we can. And if for some reason there's, 31 or 34 or $53,000 left, then there are some solar projects that could fill that up. But
we'll come back after we run the spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be the only final change I would recommend if that's the case. Besides that, I think we've filled up our buckets. So,
and then taking Commissioner Hebner's activity 2 handout. With the change of project 3 being fully funded. And then are we all in agreement then on Commissioner Hebner's handout for activity 4?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Olivia, how long have you been following along? Do we need 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
10 minutes, maybe?
Okay. So we'll adjourn. Staff, let's all go into chair box breakout room to work on the spreadsheet. And Mon, you can disable for a 10-minute break. As revised for activity 1, fully funding Middleton. There was one slight change when we ran the numbers in that we are able to fund Pierce at a slightly higher amount. We had originally thought it would be around 340. The math confirms that award will be $351,119. And we did not have any dollars left as we'll flip through the other activities to fund anything other than the Nina Waterworks project under option 1A of Commissioner Hebner's proposal after fully funding Middleton.
Okay.
Could just put that balance into Pierce too.
Well, I think essentially all unused funds from the other activities go into Pierce to round us to exactly 7 million. That's the way my math works as well. So from the other activities, any extra funds are given to Pierce, since that would be the only partial award.
Okay. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, moving on then to activity 2. Here again, the only change is we took the leftovers that we had from activity 4 to fully fund project number 3. And you'll see that fully funded there.
Okay.
And then transportation, we fully funded the 2 projects.
Okay.
And then in activity 4, we went with Commissioner Hebner's handout, and the 40,000 that you saw there got split split between activities 1 and 2. So bottom line is that that expends all of the previously allocated funds.
Okay, so the 40, half of it, 20 went into fund Pierce, and the other went to fund
Alstrom, Munksjoe.
Ostrom.
Right. Can you go back to activity 3 again? If Spears doesn't buy the full EVs, would you guys be open to sending that 14 contingent, sending it to fully fund Pierce then?
Sure.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
only-
conceptually fine with that too.
Yep.
I don't know what the paperwork machinations are from the legal side, but
It's probably a nightmare.
Well, we will.
be a delegated decision. Or something
Yeah, we can work with that. Just note any unused funds based from that contingent award would then be reallocated to fully fund Pierce.
Okay.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
And now I have your dissent noted on the eligibility question, Commissioner Nowak. But other than that, I think we covered all of the decision items.
So
Staff? Yep. Commissioner?
Before we do the next round, are we going to have a meeting about this, maybe categories again and scoping and all that stuff?
Exactly.
Because I think, we may want to, based on what came here today on our decisions, figure out if there's a focus that we want to emphasize next time, particularly like the manufacturing.
Exactly.
What's the timetable? What are we thinking?
I think we're trying to get this on an annual schedule so that it's, more predictable for the grantees and the vendors and installers. And so there's probably decisions we could make, but I guess my vision would be essentially the same calendar as what we just did, unless staff has a post-mortem that would identify a different schedule. But basically looking at this again in September, issuing an RFP in October, having the applications due in January, and then we'd be back here again next April, looking at the next round and put the remaining funds on that cadence so that it's a consistent signal out to the potential grantees so they can plan their projects. So that would be my hope. So that'd be, coming back in September timeframe with a scoping memo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just try to figure out when it's coming up again.
Yep.
Are you guys ready for a motion then?
Yes.
Staff, any questions? We good, staff? Yep. Okay.
I will move that in docket 9709 FG 2020, we approve the Energy Innovation Grant Program funds pursuant to our discussion today.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that concludes our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 8th, 2021 at 10:30 a.m. May we have a motion to adjourn?
Will we stand adjourned until April 8th?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, staff,
Have a good
for
day.
crunching the numbers in real time.
Yes.
Great job.